action. I've been to Washington and have seen the impact that these visits and the letters can have. So we have to keep hammering away to make our voices heard.
Delegates, members, and guests at this 60th Annual Convention. First of all, I'd like to bring to you the greetings from the Farmers Union members in your sister state to the north. As you began your 60th Annual Convention, perhaps it would be appropriate to look at what is today's role of a farm organization. More specifically, what is the role of the Farmers Union in the 1970s? What are the challenges that face Farmers Union members throughout this nation? In order to look at these challenges, I believe it is necessary that we expose a number of myths and misconceptions about our organization and the family farm agricultural system. First, the myth that has been promoted in recent years that family farm is a nostalgic institution that has no connection with today's realities. This misconception is being subtly perpetuated by those who wish to continue to dismantle our national agricultural policy. Yes, there is a lot of nostalgia about the family farm. Family farms are no longer 40 acres and a mule. Family farmers are no longer those who have no skills for other occupations. Family farms do not have, nor have they ever had, any special, mysterious mystique that made family farmers a special breed of humanity. On the contrary, the family farm today is a mature, essential ingredient of our agricultural system. The family farm today is an efficient unit that is large enough to provide a decent standard of living for the farm family. It is small enough to provide close attention to the conservation and management of our land resources. The family farmer today is a highly skilled, well-educated member of society. He is farming because he has chosen this way of life for himself and his family. He has the capacity for entering many professions, but he has chosen farming. He has the managerial skills of a business executive, the agricultural knowledge of an extension economist, the manual skills of a mechanic, and the capacity for long hours of hard work of a laborer. Practically no other profession combines the attributes of manager, scientist, skilled labor, or unskilled labor, but those attributes and many others are the requirements of today's family farmers. There is nothing mysterious about the role of the family farm. It is not only the most efficient agricultural production unit in terms of economics, but also in terms of the social fabric of this nation. The family farm provides stability to the economy of rural communities, and thus is the main force that generates opportunities in rural America. It is the only sector of our economy which produces new wealth from renewable resources of land, air, and water. The most important, the independent family farmer, is the last vestige of the free enterprise system in this nation. Almost every other economic sector of American life today has become monopolistic or highly centralized, and the control system of production and distribution. Those who advocate the preservation of the free enterprise system must begin to recognize the role of family farm in the preserving of this heritage. No, the family farm is not a nostalgic creature of the past. It is a vital ingredient necessary for the preservation of the basic institutions and beliefs of a democratic society. Understanding of the role of the family farm is essential to an understanding of the role of the Farmers Union. Because we, as a farm organization, are as closely tied to the family farm, those who perpetuate the myth that the family farm has outlived its usefulness are also trying to say that the Farmers Union is no longer a viable institution. But like the family farm, the Farmers Union has grown up and matured, improved its skills and its ability to respond to the needs of its members. Yes, there is a lot of nostalgia about the Farmers Union, After all, nationally, we're over 70 years old. We have successfully transferred this organization from one generation to the next over the past 4 generations. But this nostalgia is promoted from within our own ranks. It is understandable that a number of our members look back and view the period in which they were most active as the heyday of the Farmers Union. For some, this means the days of the Depression, when they fought to keep the mortgages from their farms. For others, it was the time when they organized and built their cooperatives. For others, it was when they went to Washington to fight for decent price and income legislation. What is important to remember, however, is that each generation looks back and finds that the heyday of Farmers Union was at a different time. This illustrates the strength of the Farmers Union to respond to the issues of each generation and the success of Farmers Union members in passing their organization on to the next generation. The most important ingredient to remember is that for many, the heyday of the Farmers Union is in the future. In this regard, we must not permit the fondness of certain members of our organization for the past to limit our ability to lead into the future. Not that we should neglect our past. Farmers Union has a rich heritage that increases its ability to deal with the future. Farmers Union has a consistency in its philosophy that few other organizations can claim. This consistency does not condemn us to living in the past. Instead, it opens the door to new policies, new directions, and new emphasis that gives credibility and recognition to those positions that are necessary in the future. Having such a heritage does not mean that Farmers Union is looking to the past, but rather it means we can look forward to the future, secure in the knowledge that we know where we have been and we know where we are going. In American agricultural history, almost every generation has produced its own new farm organization. Very few have survived. However, the Farmers Union is one of the few. The cycle of history would predict that this nation is now entering a period in which agriculture will witness a birth of a new farm organization. But I, for one, do not believe that this generation will produce a new farm organization. Rather, I am convinced that instead of a new organization, Farmers Union will bring its traditions and capabilities of its past to the challenges of the future. I believe that the Farmers Union can and will be the farm organization of this generation. I further believe that this generation of family farmers will bring Farmers Union into a new horizon of effectiveness and a level of commitment. I am convinced that this effectiveness and commitment will far exceed what Farmers Union has experienced in the past. We have the traditions, the tools, the capacity, and the national atmosphere that gives family farmers the opportunity to be an effective molder of national and international policy that can benefit all of humanity. If we are to accept the challenges of becoming a new farm organization of this generation, we must foster and use the creative intelligence of the membership of this organization to open up these new vistas. We can begin with our cooperatives. Those who are lost in the nostalgia of the past give credence to the myth that now that we have built our cooperatives, there's very little left to do. But in reality, we have only reached the first step in cooperative organization. We have built the institutions. Now it is our job to learn how to most effectively use these cooperative institutions to the benefit of the family farm members. This does not mean that we can stop building and expanding our cooperatives. We have a long way to go in securing the full patronage and loyalty of to our cooperative system that is necessary to make them as effective as the dreams of those who organized them. The organizers of our cooperatives built them for not just themselves, but for their children and for the generations to come. We are now transferring our cooperatives to a new generation. We must also transfer the vision that built the cooperative and provide the commitment and the loyalty to the cooperative system. But we cannot stop there. We must permit and encourage a new vision to grow in the hearts and the minds of today's family farmers. Our cooperatives, to a great extent, have accomplished part of the purpose of their organizer. Their purpose was to build an economic structure owned and controlled by family farmers. Their purpose was to provide a competitive force to ensure honesty and price protection in both the marketing of our production and the purchasing of our production supplies. Now it is time to take these tools and build them into the most effective bargaining agents that farmers have ever had. It is not the time to sit back and permit the cooperatives to compete against each other in a futile and unrealistic approach that is neither in the short-term nor long-term interest of cooperative members. Such initial internal competition in the cooperative movement is not only divisive, but it is destructive to the very purposes for which the cooperatives were built. Those who promote this mythical belief of internal competition within the cooperative movement have a limited and narrow vision that reveals their total lack of understanding of what cooperation is all about. Nor is it time for cooperative members to become overwhelmed with the success of their cooperative. The growth in size and capability of our cooperative is a tribute to the work and the dreams of the early cooperators. It does not mean that they have achieved their full purpose. It only means that today's farmers can build upon the past successes and bring the new innovative spirit to creative utilization and build these cooperatives to even more effective bargaining agents. The success and size of our cooperatives should not overwhelm us. Instead, they should prompt us to give them even greater loyalty and patronage. The success should prompt us to become more intimately involved in the direction of the cooperatives. It should prompt us to find new ways to utilize them. We must expand them so that they can not only have a regional impact, but a national one. We must expand them so that they can move with even bolder steps into the international markets. We have made some beginning steps in not only the export market, but also in securing petroleum and production supplies throughout the world through our cooperatives. These beginnings can mean a new era in cooperation that gives the family farmer even greater control over his economic structure. Not only must we expand and bring new vision to the use of our cooperatives, but we must do a better job at integrating their operations so that production that is initially marketed through the local cooperatives stays within the cooperative system until it reaches its destination in foreign markets. We should seriously explore the feasibility of using our cooperatives from the local to the international level through marketing and contracting pool structures that enhance our ability to effectively bargain for us. We must establish national policies that place priorities on ensuring the farmer-owned cooperatives the greater access and greater ability to compete in the export market. Just as the nation by law gave preference to consumer-owned institutions in the distribution of hydroelectric power, we must now establish national policies that give farmer-owned and consumer-controlled institutions first preference and greater access to publicly owned energy resources. If this nation is to successfully deal with the international oil and energy monopolies, we must begin with the consumer and give them the ability to provide a competitive force from the public resources. We cannot continue to permit these international monopolies to exploit the resources for their own corporate profit. If we are to accept the challenge of being the new farm organization of this generation, we must look at our own structures. We must provide the necessary resources and leadership to our local and county organizations so that they can open the door to creative programs and ideas of today's family farmers. Only by being effective organizations at community levels can we expect to be effective at state and national levels. We must destroy the myth that organizations at the local level can no longer be effective in implementing and coping with change. The fact is that family farmers, joined with his neighbors at the local level, is the most fundamental system in the process of developing and implementing state and national policies, as well as meeting the immediate concerns of rural communities. Not only must we renew the commitment to local activity, but we must also provide the necessary resources and commitment to a national organization so that we can move in a coordinated and concentrated effort toward the policies that we establish. We must bury the myth that we are individual states in pursuit of our own provincial concerns. We are not individual state organizations because we do have a common purpose, a common philosophy, and a common membership of family farmers. The best way to put this recent myth to rest is to escalate our programs of interstate cooperation and national purpose. There is another myth and misconception of the role of today's farm organizations, and that is that farm organizations cannot get together. The fact is that we do get together, even though there are disagreements. Whenever and wherever there has been a common objective among farm groups, we have and will continue to work with each other. Farmers Union is not interested in battling other farm groups. We are only interested in advancing the mandates of our members as effectively as we can. When these mandates require coalitions with other farm groups, consumer organizations, or others, we will seek those coalitions. If we are to meet the challenge of becoming a new farm organization, we must increase the awareness of Americans that American food production is not just a national question. Instead, it has become an international obligation for worldwide cooperation and peace. Farmers Union must give leadership in promoting not a farm policy, but a national and international food policy. We as farmers are not just interested in securing equity in the marketplace, but we have a deep concern over the distribution of food. We must lay aside the myth that somehow we can advertise ourselves into prosperity through commodity promotion. We must recognize that the only way to increase food consumption is by increasing the ability of people to purchase their food requirements. 4% reduction in unemployment in the industrialized nations of this world would take care of all of the concerns about any surpluses anywhere in the world today. This is why Farmers Union generated the Full Employment Act of 1946. This is why Farmers Union was the catalyst for the Food for Peace program. This is why Farmers Union was in the forefront of the fight for the school lunch and the food stamp programs. This is why Farmers Union must continue to work with the consumers in building a national and international food policy. I'm not saying that Farmers Union should reduce its efforts for price and income programs that provide protection and services for agriculture. Rather, I am saying that we cannot separate farm policy from a national and international food policy. We cannot successfully achieve a farm policy without establishing a national food policy. In the same context, we cannot really ever separate a food policy from an energy policy. More and more, the world is beginning to realize that food and energy are, for all practical purposes, the same substance. And that brings us right back to the land, which is the source of both food and energy. We cannot separate food and energy policy from land policy. The question is not only who will be responsible for food production, but also who will be responsible for the conservation and utilization of land resources. This nation must learn that we cannot determine the land use based on today's short-term economics. It must be determined on the basis that recognizes that land is the source of all human energy. Therefore, it must be utilized with the foresight required to preserve humanity itself. The land policy translates itself back to national farm credit policies, land transfer systems, coal development questions, water resources, and transportation systems. If we are to become the new farm organization of this generation, we must rid ourselves of the myth that price alone, or cooperatives by themselves, or that farm policy by itself, or a singular land policy, or any individual policy, institution, or system will save the family farm. Each provides a small part of the answer, but by themselves they do not even ask the right questions. The role of the farm organization in 1970 is not to provide singular, simple answers. The role of the Farmers Union must be to bring understanding to a whole realm of issues that affect family farmers and communicate the interrelationships of these issues through the cooperative, educational, and legislative arms of our organization. Family farmers are no longer isolated individuals. They are part of a national and international society that lends new importance to their role as food producers. The role of Farmers Union is to address this opportunity with an integrated approach that recognizes the full vision of today's farmer in seeking economic, social, and political democracy throughout the world. As you began your state convention, you are continuing in the process of that vision. You will be examining numerous issues through your speakers and your policy decisions. It will be up to you to provide the overview perspective to how each issue fits in the vision that you have for your future. With imagination, creativity, and understanding, you will be able to communicate that vision to others and thus make progress toward improving the human society. The process has no real beginning and is never fully completed. Each generation builds on the successes and the failures of the preceding generation. If Farmers Union is to be the new farm organization of this generation, then we must first involve in building the successes that will further open the door to the next generation. To be successful, we must generate the discussions and the policies that not only face our immediate concerns, but provide the leadership and the basis for the issues of the next decade. We must be willing to adopt positions and take leadership roles in promoting programs that we recognize may not be implemented for a decade, perhaps even a generation. Only by striking ahead can a farm organization remain on the forefront and on the cutting edge of the policy decisions of our local communities, our state, our nation, and the international community. One other myth that I would like to put to rest, and that is the myth of numbers. Farmers are continually told that they have become a minority in today's society. This has too frequently misled people into having a sense of hopelessness and destroying their incentive to become involved in the processes of controlling their own futures. But let me remind you, there is virtually no instance in all of history where progress has been instituted by the majority. The minority has nearly always protected the status quo and was worried that something might upset their apple cart. And as history would have it, something did upset their apple cart. It may have started with a minority of one, because a minority of one is the substance of human progress. Too many Farmers Union members are apologetic for the attendance at their meetings, not realizing that a meeting is for those who are there, not for those that stayed at home. I am not willing to apologize for the level of participation in the Farmers Union, because the level of participation has built the nation's strongest cooperative movement. The level of participation has generated significant social changes and national commitments, and that level of participation has been responsible for the good that this organization has done. We seek an even higher level of participation. But in comparison to other organizations, we can be proud of what our present level has accomplished. Yes, farmers are in a minority position, but they have a great importance to the nation and to the world because it is this minority that provides the food energy for human progress. It is this very minority that, through its vision of better tomorrows, can lead the nation to new horizons for an improved human society. This is the role of a farm organization in 1970. And this is the role that the Farmers Union believes it is its obligation and mandate as the new organization for this generation. I congratulate you and wish you well in your work during this convention. Thank you very much.
I have seen the very best in terms of health care. We have the best health care in the world in the United States, but the problem is it's reserved for the rich and the powerful people of this country. We have the very best. And anybody that is for health security and health reform recognizes that we have the best. We have the best in biomedical research. We won 31 out of the 40 Nobel Prizes. And don't let anyone say, when you always hear the spokesman from the AMA and the other people, well, we deplore those that say derogatory words about our health care system. I say we've got the best, but it's reserved for the rich and the powerful in our nation. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. And I have seen it in personal terms. I have seen it in 7 months in a hospital in Boston. My back was broken in 26 places. I got the very best. I received it. And I had a sick son who had an amputation, and he got the very best. And I want to pledge to everyone in rural America that I'm going to make sure, as long as I'm a member of the United States Senate, that the very best that I've seen is going to reach out to look out to rural America.
Sincere appreciation again to Senator Kennedy for the fact that he has been able to come over this morning and to give us really a composite picture of the health care programs and the various comprehensive bills that he himself, as a senator not only from Massachusetts, he's my senator from Mississippi. I'm sure as he has displayed himself so vividly here today, he is the senator for all of us from every state in this nation. There is a workshop program that we're going to have to get to. And again, I want to thank you, Teddy, for coming over. I want to thank all of you for being here. Let's get to work, okay?
There's been a vast introduction of absentee owners. There are corporations set up now, custom farm corporations, whose mission is to recruit capital from investors who want to buy land for these tax reasons. And then the company goes ahead and farms the land. It just writes out checks at the end of the year and sends a check to the investor. We've got one fellow in Nebraska, one corporation, I should say, who's farming 10,000 acres under this system. His clients range from bank holding companies, bank presidents, to no pejorative term intended here, New Jersey investors, and just the broadest range of absentee owners. Now, the impact of that is colonial. Those kinds of people, those kinds of operations don't care where they buy their tractors. They want a maximum price advantage. And so they don't buy the tractors in the local area. They do hire labor, and of course, anytime a bill comes up to restrict corporate farming of this sort in the state of Nebraska, the communities that have prospered very locally because of the increase in wealth of that community have come forward and said we can't afford to restrict this kind of development, it's good for the community. That's a traditional colonial response over the short run. We keep saying we fought a revolution over this question 2 centuries ago, but nobody listened. The local people in that area don't want to listen. And ultimately what we have, of course, is the evolution of a class structure in the rural economy, where you have some people who own the land resources, some people who work the land resources, and some people who manage the land resources. it becomes very clearly has overtones of class structure. And anytime I see one of those poor fellows who works for the custom farm management companies beating his brow to fight corporate farming legislation, I don't want to sound condescending, but I genuinely feel sorry for that person, because he's in an economic position where he really doesn't have a choice. Father McRae talked about the scars of progress. It's significant that the people who organized to fight corporate farming legislation in Nebraska are people who are profiting from this kind of irrigation technology, and they're the folks, they call themselves the Sand Hills Association for the Preservation of Progressive Agriculture. So the scars of progress. Well, on the Winnebago Reservation, where I live, we experienced land speculation that was motivated by changes in technology in the 1890s. You know, the new farm implement, farm machinery revolution of that period encouraged land speculation companies to open up the reservation for farming by non-Indians. We had run out of land in Nebraska that was considered tillable. We hadn't come to centrifuge irrigation yet. And so they decided that the last portion of Nebraska that was suitable for tillage should be brought into farming. And land speculation companies, specifically the Florinite Company, were created specifically to recruit white farmers to come in and settle the reservation area. All sorts of schemes of extortion and corruption were used to wheedle the land away from the Winnebago tribe. The Winnebago tribe now has about 27,000 acres. At one point they don't have Wisconsin, but in Nebraska they had, when the reservation was established, 127,000 acres. They now have some 27,000. There are no Winnebago Indians who farm. There are no Winnebago Indians who are very far from problems of alcoholism and other social diseases. And the simple story is that absentee landlordism, that land speculation, that capital-intensive agriculture, that technologically intensive agriculture really ultimately produces the kinds of things that I think now we're trying to avoid in urban America. And Peter, I congratulate you for bringing some of these issues to the fore on water. I think in Nebraska we've much learned about the problems of surface water irrigation, because as the water table declines in the sand hills, what they're talking about now is damming up the last native river in Nebraska, the Niobrara River, and creating, via the Northern Dam, creating a surface water irrigation project that will supply those center pivot systems with water. I think that's sad time.
Thank you. I'm also pleased to be here too. It's good to look around and see folks from Maine, California, Florida, Arkansas, all through the Midwest. People feeling that all these phone calls and letters you write, things you write to get out to folks are actually being received, and particularly in times like this, when you can scare something. Folks who come all the way to Washington, D.C., which is no place to be, to get together and talk is a very strengthening kind of thing. I wanted to talk a bit about the railroad robbery that this country has experienced. And then I want to talk a bit about what we can do about it. A friend of mine runs around the country making a living singing songs. Those songs once called Daddy Watch the Train, by this technical boy down to an abandoned railroad station. It goes, Daddy Watch the Train. Is it something I can ride? Does it carry lots of little folks and big people inside? Is it bigger than my house? How can I explain when my little boy asks me, Daddy, what's a train? Well, the man's name is Utah Phillips, and he's got other definitions of what a train is too. Some of these are his and some of them are mine. A train, friends, is 7 million acres in 6 Midwestern and Western states where mineral rights are held. It's 7 million acres on which earnings last year skyrocketed over 84% over the previous year. It's Pueblo, Colorado, Powell River, $4.25 million in coal revenue. A train is $77 million from hauling coal. It's 800 million tons of new lignite coal reserves in North Dakota and Montana alone. It's 62 billion tons of coal reserves. A train is 7.25 million tons of iron ore produced just last year. Daddy, what's a train? A train is oil reserves of 15.7 million barrels and gas reserves of 14 billion cubic feet. A train is 1.5 million acres of commercial timberland, from which this train made $62 million last year in revenue, 23% increase. The train is called the Plum River Creek Lumber Company for $31 million. It's $10 million on real estate sales. It's Desert Magic, a 6,000-acre farm on the banks of the Columbia River, diverting millions of gallons of water from Indian reservation lands through the use of a gigantic sprinkler system. A train is several thousand acres of Montana alfalfa and wheat pasture land. It's the Western Food Express. It was partially deceased Chet Huntley's Big Sky Montana Resort. A train is the Pacific Trade Center in Seattle, and real estate developments in New Orleans, Los Angeles, St. Louis, the Kansas City Land Corporation. And most importantly, this train is J.P. Morgan, John Myers. General Mills is Charles Bell, or Inland Steel is John Smith. The Montana Power, Equitable Life Insurance, First National City Bank, the Simpson Timber Company, the conductors and the engineers of this train. It's $46.5 million in unused investment credit on its last year's income tax return. And yet this train is so impoverished that after billions of dollars of tax monies, loans never repaid, and gifts that never seem to satisfy, the train is now unloaded on Chicago suburban passengers, a service to us that once we assume its debts, take its upkeep, it'll do us the kind favor of running its train for us again. For stopping to pick us up on these cold winter mornings, hopefully not more than half an hour late. This train is the Burlington Northern Railroad. Now, it could come the Southern Pacific, with 4 million acres of land and mineral rights to an additional 4 million more. With the Black Mesa Pipeline, in which the Southern Pacific earned $2 million moving coal from the White Mesa Indian Reservation last year. Could have been the Union Pacific with 10 million tons of low sulfur coal reserves and 16 million barrels of oil production last year alone. Could have been Illinois Central, which makes more money out of Pepsi-Cola, Perfect Plus Hosiery, Dad's Root Beer, Midas Mufflers, and with $300 million conservatively in real estate investments and holding the air rights to tract land worth millions more. Or it could have been the Santa Fe Railroad, 1,800-mile pipeline supplying anhydrous ammonium fertilizer to the Midwest, and a 630,000-acre pulp farm in East Texas and West Louisiana. You heard the sound of Atchison and Santa Fe, and it's supposed to give you a feeling of movement. Well, Santa Fe is moving, or it's moving. It even paints its cars these days, which is a miracle most railroads can't afford. But the Santa Fe plans to abandon 815 miles of track this year. It plans to abandon 815 miles of track while it accumulated 142 million barrels of proven oil reserves. It's going to abandon 815 miles of track while it just gained 1 million additional offshore acres for oil and gas leases. It's going to abandon 815 miles of track while it shipped 550 million tons of oil through its pipelines last year. It's going to abandon 815 miles of track while it's building the world's largest airport outside Dallas, Texas. And I want to ask yourself, what in the world is a railroad company doing building an airport? We all need to tell you. You know, you'd think that a railroad ought to be promoting rail traffic. You might think a railroad might want to talk about the fact that railroads are 27 times more efficient than airlines, or that railroads are 40 times better at moving people than cars, and moving freight too. But the problem here is, you see, the bankers that own these railroads have been milking them for all they're worth. You know, it's the same gimmick that we first heard about from that group they call the mafia. You know, we move into a business, take it over, and then slowly milk it of its assets, and then split the scene. Well, that's what the railroads are doing, as they take money out of their railroad operations and put that money into energy and into real estate. For example, the Santa Fe last year quadrupled its expenditures in forest products. It tripled its expenditures in real estate. It doubled its expenditures in oil and petroleum, doubled its expenditures in trucking. Oh yeah, there's the trucking too. Railroads, well, they only went up 50% of expenditures in railroads. You know how inflation's going. They probably spent a few extra dollars, but not many, trying to keep their railroads up. Now, what's a railroad doing? Running airports and trucking firms. The answer simply is these briefcase gangsters are in the oil business. They're in the oil business last year so that 42% of their pre-tax earnings came from oil. In an energy shortage year, the Santa Fe doubled its price of oil last year, and from that doubling price, tripled its pre-tax earnings. But now, like all other oil companies, you understand, this railroad encourages energy consumption. So no wonder it's helping General Motors build the world's largest hydro plant out there in Oklahoma. It sold General Motors land and helping General Motors do the construction. Santa Fe is not the exception. It's the rule. The railroad system is being robbed of its cash each day as its banker bandits that own the lines line their bulging pockets with money they've stolen from the railroad operations. And that's not, open extortion and embezzlement like the Penn Central was found guilty of. It's slow starvation and neglect. Between 1950 and 1973, all of U.S. industry increased its new plant and equipment spending by 5 times. The railroads barely increased their spending on the railroads 1 time. They put all the money into oil and real estate. And maintenance was even worse. In 1950, these railroads spent $1.25 billion maintaining their right-of-ways and their online structures. 25 years later, they were only spending $1.9 billion, and inflation has gone up much more than that in 25 years. So actually, they're spending less money today to keep these railroads running than they were 25 years ago. But they're spending much more money on their oil fields and on their coal stripping. And it was a pleasure to see that the Securities and Exchange Commission finally got around to investigating the fact that Burlington Northern had been delaying its expenditures on its track and equipment while it was trying to push up its profits a little, to compete with the other profit mongers that they have to deal with. It's no wonder that freight dropped 25% on many railroads last year. They put their railroad funds into other kinds of ventures. And now they have the gall, the unmitigated gall, to have convinced President Ford that he ought to give a $3 billion loan guarantee fund for the railroads, meaning the taxpayers are going to pay for it. Just another rail welfare program for the rich. And now, overall, the railroads want to abandon 6,200 miles of track in the Northeast and the Midwest alone. They want to abandon 6,200 miles of track, serving countless small farm towns, offering transportation for tens of thousands of farmers, producing millions of tons of grain. Abandon those towns to higher-priced truck transportation whose increments are going to be passed on to consumers. Abandon the thousands of additional acres of good farm land that's now going to have to be paved with roads to get those big grain trucks to market. Many, many, many homes in rural parts of this country have been abandoned. A lot of these are around my home in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. Farm homes abandoned and left to the wild dogs to live in. And these railroad bankers have for too long taken the same attitude, treating rural folks like they were those same dogs to live in whatever kind of abandoned shack they wanted to leave us there. Been bleeding the public since the beginning, and the problem is that it wouldn't be so bad if these were just the general ordinary run-of-the-mill capitalists that brought their money from somewhere abroad. The difference is that they built this fortune up on land that we gave them, that Peter was talking about. In return for running a railroad for the public, oil companies and railroad companies, as they're now become one and the same, received 223 million acres, or 286,000 square miles of the public domain Now, mind you, that was 10% of the entire continental United States. They got it free. They just had to do one thing: run a railroad. Because of the deals that these railroad barons got from Congress, the railroads were also able to restrict development in almost 3/10 of the United States during the early part of its expansion. And this ratio was much higher in the West, where the Burlington Northern has its land holdings, than in other parts, because settlement wasn't so crowded out there. Now, rather than just running a railroad, the railroads at that time made $500 million off of the sale of these public lands. And in terms of the additional amounts of money they were able to make, the Department of Transportation back in the 1930s alone calculated the railroads had made an additional profit of $1.3 billion off the fact that we gave them this land. Now, it seems to me that any lobbying is justified today on behalf of the railroad system. It's time for a people's lobby to demand that after 3/4 of a century of private profit from the public expense, it's time for people to take back the property of these railroads without further compensation, so that in the future the benefits will be reaped by the people that pay the profits, the taxes, and that's us. Any reimbursement made to railroad grants to the present has been with little interest on the original obligation that the railroad companies made to citizens of the country. What I'm talking about simply is how do we go about nationalizing the railroad system? It seems to me, I'm not a lawyer, but there's two ways we can think about that. The simple fact is that many of these railroads will simply cease to exist in the very near future if the taxpayers don't continually dole out millions of dollars of funds to them. They want to get out of their railroad business. It's clear because they put all their money into oil and other ventures. So we can say simply, okay, we'll give you no more money to run your business. If you're going to run as a capitalist enterprise, then you can run that way. When you lose money, then go out of business. And when you go out of business, we'll simply take them over with no compensation. It's clear that the amount of money that's been funneled into the railroad system of this country in land and grants and loans is far above the present value of the railroads. And there's some railroads, like the Santa Fe that paints its cars, that do claim to be split even these days in the railroad business. It seems to me for these railroads, we need to develop sort of the idea of the family farm Act talks about. It's simply that if any company that's running a railroad is not spending 95% of its funds and energy and people running that railroad, then in the same fashion the Family Farm Act deals with corporate farming. It should be taken over and be forced out of the railroad business or forced to run a railroad. Now, I'm not a lawyer, like I say, and I'm sure there's all kinds of legal problems, and we can talk about the ways of implementing the nationalization of a railroad system. But it seems to me that that's really where we've got to go. But there are other kinds of local actions that folks are about right now, too. I just wanted to list here for you before I sit down. Up in the Dakotas, in the North Dakotas, they're talking about when you nationalize the railroads, you've got to nationalize the land as well. And again, that's what I'm talking about.